Well, mukbang videos do tend to get some good numbers, often not for the most amiable of reasons, really. We open this week with our heroes very slowly fulfilling their fan club obligations with their tiny little printer. Again guys, UPS, FedEx, Vistaprint, just hire some sort of third party rather than turning this into a sweatshop for your fairy friends. Speaking of whom, they had added a couple of new allies to their ranks.
And who's that? Oh, it's Mr. MVP! Simp!
Also, call me crazy, but I feel like we forgot something important in regards to these two. Oh yeah, that little detail. Seriously, y'all really don't care about saving that little plushie kingdom, do you? Yes, I was expecting them to eventually address this little plot point, but my criticism about them not executing it well with them treating it like so matter-of-factly here still stands. Anyway, Cuddy and Zachary gave a fairly predictable backstory about how they were corrupted by Darkine, who somehow infiltrated their kingdom before her big attack. She picked them out specifically because they were shown to be kind of selfish, though really not all that bad. I mean, at the very least, they weren't being malicious or anything, and no one was mistreating them like, say, the bad end generals, or felt betrayed like Chocolat from L Rangers. Yeah, don't ask me how I know about these obscure anime, I just kind of do really. Point is that there wasn't too much to their backstory other than this one fairy who Zachary rejected. She wasn't credited, but that was very clearly the voice of Sayuri Yahagi. I mean, just imagine Ranko when she's not being a total bitch. Why do I point out this specific fairy? Oh, well, not for any particular reason. I mean, it's not as though we've talked about VA multiple times and her range in regards to a certain other character. Anyway, as the first two members of their little fan club, they decided to provide their own suggestions to spread the word about the Precure, leading us to what was very clearly suggested in the title of this episode, with the Precure uploading more videos to their YouTube, or rather, CureTube. Yeah, because apparently all you need to do to avoid copyright is insert Cure into YouTube or Instagram. Honestly, it just makes me imagine a world where YouTube isn't owned by Google, but rather Toei, and I can't really decide who's more evil. But yeah, after promising that they make almost daily videos like some idiot who hopes that his sub count would grow eventually, goddammit, they did what most new channels do and experimented with their content. Also, in this universe, it looks like they also got rid of the dislike button, which unfortunately we'll never get back, even with the installation of some browser attachments they could just do a quick Google search of. But yeah, they tried a bunch of different videos to see what would go viral. They started with Cooking Corner with Prune. Personally I just subbed to Babish for weepy cooking videos. Also look, another Princession connection with a character voiced by Yoshino Nanjo becoming a celebrity cook. Following this, Nana tried to do a DIY video, not realizing that most blue-collar viewers don't have the money for freaking studio lights that could cause solar flares. But yeah, of these first two segments, they weren't all that funny. I mean, Zukyun's bit didn't have much of a punchline, and Nana's lights were just too random in my opinion. Fortunately, this last bit did kind of get me, if only because I enjoy my dry humor. They had Meron do a poetry corner about how much she loved her sissy. Now, ignoring the fact that pretentious crap like this doesn't usually go viral, I did love how they showed the passage of time with the sun setting and rising, and them even need to change out cameramen, and I'm guessing at least a few dozen SD cards. Sorry, I was just watching something that was a little worth my time. But yeah, unlike the randomness of Nana's light, I could totally buy that this crazy chick could expound about Korean for literal hours. It was especially funny as said fairy was the first one behind the camera, and yet clearly didn't give two craps about what this psychotic yandere waxing poetic about her had to say. Honestly, this is probably the best part of the episode, and what followed wasn't bad, just not nearly as funny, as Utah went to school, and even though he kept saying that he'd edit the videos, Tanaka didn't exactly do that great a job. This is why you shouldn't have left this guy in charge of the editing process. But yeah, I guess Meron's 10-hour video compilation really drained him, to the point that he didn't even edit some very clear bloopers, which honestly, I kind of get as the grind is real. And yet, in spite of being the equivalent of SpongeBob in the Krusty Krab commercial, Uta suddenly became a lot more popular in her class, in particular with this one kid who just kind of fell for her and even wrote her a love letter because, I don't know.
うっかり映らないように注意した方が良さそうですね。
You're the one in charge of the editing, dude. Like, seriously, if this were South Korea, you would be in all kinds of trouble. Granted, they're still busy dealing with this idiot. Also, as I predicted, they were using the new eye catch format to show off their toys, which did at least give us a new Zukyun Kiss animation this week. Anyway, the last video they made for this episode was Kokoro's instructional video on how to cheer and sing along with the Precure, which, yeah, I was pretty much making the same face as Meron here. Not helping matters were these really bad looking perspective shots. Like, this is not making Kokoro's hand look close, it just makes her look like she turned into Luffy. Thankfully though, they didn't actually do a tutorial video, as they had to cut it short due to technical difficulties.
OK じゃないです。
Oh sure, now you care about the editing process. Anyway, Tokine showed up and of course targeted Uta's fanboy as the victim of the week. And I gotta say, between the fairy who just so happened to kind of sound like her, and the fact that she's extinguishing a simp from this world, I was kind of on the villainous side this week. Anyway, the fight this week was incredibly mid. Like, not only did it feel kind of random, but the actual fight was not at all well animated. Like, Uta's punch here was just off. It was mostly just a barrage of everyone's signature attacks before they launched into their finisher, which was the Trio Dreams because there's no real spotlight character this week.
Wow! What the hell?
With that, they rescued Simping McSimpington, yeah, I'm not even gonna bother learning his name, as the episode ended with him just suddenly switching to liking, ironically enough, the idol Precure.
Wah, wah, wah.
This was just kind of an okay episode about cure tubing. Like, even as someone who does this stuff regularly, I wasn't expecting a lot, other than maybe a few good jokes, which unfortunately, there also wasn't much of that. And as a result, I don't feel like giving this a like or dislike, because really I don't think I should give them the free engagement. As far as episodes about viral video making are concerned, this episode was pretty basic. Like, maybe I've just been spoiled on stuff like VTuber Legend or Mile Naka Punch, but I think I can give some leeway to this show, if only not to encourage the target audience to be sucked into this godforsaken rabbit hole. Sure, I would have liked to seen some commentary about the dangers of being online, like maybe a mean comment section or something, but again, I didn't expect much other than a few laughs. That said, yeah, the only joke that really worked for me was Meron's overly long sissy diatribe. Everything else was just kind of in terms of comedy. Meanwhile, with this being another episode written by director Chiaki Kon, the overall story progression just felt kind of off. Like, we started with Cuddy and Zachary just haphazardly recounting their backstory, and then after all of the cure tubing antics, they just went into the fight of the week as though it was just out of pure obligation. Like, it wasn't bad, but it just felt really underwhelming in its execution, and really, that's probably the best way to describe this episode overall. Just very underwhelming for what's a very topical subject matter, which they could have been a little more creative with. I don't think the Cures can earn a sub from me. Now, Lovecraftian abominations who hold death games, ooh, that's got my attention. Yeah, don't ask me about my hobbies. Thank you for watching, and no, I don't need your help. Yeah, honestly, if you just want some fun, almost daily videos about tokusatsu and anime, we'll be here if you're interested, and unlike the Precure, we'll try to stick to a certain format. Look forward to Princess Orchestra tomorrow, and until then though, farewell for now my friends, and if you'll excuse me, I'm gonna watch the real idols on this site.